Welcome back to Breslov, Pirkey, Avot. This is Eliyahu Beta, and today we're going to continue with Chapter 1, Mishnah 6. B'Shem Hashem, Na'aseh v'Natzliach. Yoshua ben Perachia v'Nitai ha'arbeli kiblu mehem. Yoshua ben Perachia omer, Aseh lecha rav, ukne lecha chaver, ve'vedan et kol adam lekaf zechut. Yoshua ben Perachia and Nitai ha'arbeli received the tradition from them. Yoshua ben Parachia said, "Find for yourself a teacher, acquire for yourself a friend, and judge every person favorably." This is one of my favorites, so I'm really excited to get into seeing what Rabbi Nachman says. So find for yourself a teacher, Breslov Insights. When the Mishnah states, find for yourself a teacher, it means that you must rectify the quality of malchut, kingship, by revealing God's glory or kingship in the world, and in this way becoming a channel for the divine will at all times and in all circumstances. How may this be accomplished? By acquiring for yourself a friend, chaver, and bringing about a unification, chibur, of the two songbirds. These two songbirds, alluding to the Holy One, God's transcendent aspect, and the Shekhinah, God's immanent aspect, are the source of prophecy, holy speech, and holy melody. In the holy temple, these songbirds were represented by the golden forms of the cheruvim, the two winged angels atop the ark of the covenant in the Holy of Holies. When the holy temple stood and the Jewish people were perfectly aligned with God's will, the cheruvim would embrace, symbolizing the love that existed between God and Israel. Whenever we align ourselves with God's will, we bring about this unification and become a channel for holiness. It's beautiful. When we align ourselves with God's will, and as we've mentioned before, God's will is love and goodness. So when we align to love and goodness, we become a channel for holiness. I like that. We can also bring about the unification of these two songbirds by singing a holy melody, a song of yearning for God, which comes from kaneh, throat, a word which shares its Hebrew root with keneh, acquire. In this way, we become a channel for malchut, which also refers to the self-mastery that each of us must attain. By self-mastery, I think that would just be mindfulness, right? Just being aware of self. This is hinted at the statement, find or make for yourself a teacher, which can be understood to mean rectify your own malchut. Once we have repaired our personal malchut, we may rule over many things. At times, the tzaddikim may even decree life or death. However, even when we have rectified our own malchut, we should still not become overzealous in our burning desire to correct the world. Rather, we must judge every person favorably, for God is merciful, and he has no desire to see the world's destruction. As it is written, he did not create it as a wasteland, but formed it to be inhabited. I think this is really beautiful. It happens often that, we get to find our truth. We get to see the things that really move us, and then suddenly everybody that doesn't share our truth is wrong, and we need to impose our truth on other people. And that's where judging everybody favorably comes in. When we understand that as my truth is true to me, so too is your truth true to you, and I realize that I can respect you, I can share my truth, but when I'm overzealous about it, then all I'm doing is using my truth to push you away, and thus, opposite of unifying, I'm actually separating. In the Digest of Commentaries, it says, find for yourself a teacher. Do not rely on your own reasoning, but seek out a teacher who can properly transmit the tradition to you. Nowadays, we have teachers, we have classes online, we have books that we can learn, and we can base our knowledge and our understanding not just on a hunch, but rather research it. It's important. Look into it. Acquire for yourself a friend. For two people who study together can achieve more than one who studies alone. Note that the Hebrew word for keneh shares its root with the word koneh, to buy. So to acquire and to buy, indicating that it is permissible to pay a study partner. Look how important it is to bounce your ideas off somebody else, but not just every random person. That also has its importance. but one person that you guys get to know each other, that you guys get to really sharpen each other's mind together. It's like it's even worth paying for. That's the importance of things. And judge every person favorably. In other words, give others the benefit of the doubt and do not assume the worst. For every person who judges others favorably will similarly be judged favorably by others. Here the Mishnah uses the term kol adam, which can mean every person and also the whole man. Even if your friend does not always behave the way he should, consider the whole man. Surely he has many other fine qualities which outweigh the bad. So here's something really cool. First of all, it's an allusion to karma. If you judge others, then that's how they're going to judge you, which is a really important thing. What you give out into the world is what you get. And the benefit of the doubt, it reminds me of like the extremes that sometimes we need to go to the benefit of the doubt. There's a Gemara that says there was a tradition that when you walked in front of this big Talmid Chacham, a sage, a great sage, in order to show him respect, you would wear two hats, be it maybe a kippah and a hat. And there were two rabbis, a rabbi and a student, and somebody walked in front of the big rabbi, and the student said, "Oh my God, what a disrespectful person! He's not wearing that second hat." And the rabbi looked at the student and he said, "You know what? Maybe he's from," I forgot the name of the town, so let's say Timbuktu. And in Timbuktu, there's so many scholars that they're used to not wearing their hats. The moral of the story is, even if you have to go to Timbuktu to judge somebody favorably, then do that, because it's only going to benefit the energy in the world. Let's see about light and darkness. Rabbi Nachman teaches, the initial letters of the phrase leader of the children of Israel, Rosh Bnei Israel, spell out the word rabbi. By contrast, the initial letters of the verse, the wicked are likened to darkness, Resha'im v'choshech yidamu, also spell the word rabbi. Rabbi Nachman Goldstein, the Tcheriner Rav, writes, I heard from my father an explanation of this teaching. A worthy rabbi enlightens the eyes of his followers, but if the teacher is unworthy, not only does he fail to enlighten the student, he actually darkens the latter's perception. This corresponds to the wicked are likened to darkness. So I think here we're getting a really interesting clue on how to see if somebody's a good teacher, if somebody's teachings are pure. It's not only to look at the teacher, but rather to look at the students. How are the students? Are they full of light? Are they happy? Are they excited to learn? Then that's a sign that the teacher's tapped into the right source. Are the students worse off? Are they sad? Are they fighting? Are they aggressive? Are they dark? Check out the teacher also. Don't only look at the student to find the fault. Moving right along. My dear friend, the great Torah scholar Rabbi Aaron once visited his teacher, Rabbi Nachman, while the latter was living in Slatipolia. One day, Rabbi Nachman overheard Rabbi Aaron singing the words of the Talmud to himself while engaging in the learning. The Rebbe remarked, this is the meaning of Kaneh Chokhmah, acquire wisdom. It alludes to the Kaneh, throat that produces the voice. The throat is called Kaneh, literally windpipe, because it is hollow like a reed. Rabbi Nachman later moved to Breslov, where he persuaded the communal leaders to appoint Rabbi Aaron as the town's chief rabbi. Just before Rabbi Aaron's arrival in Breslov, Rabbi Nassan became Rabbi Nachman's disciple. Rabbi Nachman told him, from now on, you will be able to fulfill the instruction, find for yourself a teacher, for you have chosen me as your teacher. When Rabbi Aaron arrives here, he will become your friend, and then you will also fulfill the instruction, acquire for yourself a friend. So it was. Rabbi Aaron established his household in Breslov. He saw how Rabbi Nachman worked intensively with Rav Nassan, revealing his holy teachings to Rav Nassan alone in the manner of a master addressing his disciple. Rabbi Aaron said to Rav Nassan, I would like to make a request. Since our Rebbe has called you my Yehoshua, and since Rabbi Yehoshua ben Perachia of the Mishnah taught that the proper path is to find a good friend, please accept me as a friend. Then surely Rabbi Yeshua's words will be fulfilled through you, and I will have a good friend. Thus they became lifelong friends. Rabbi Aaron always addressed Rabbi Nassan uniquely as Chaver Meiner, my friend. When Rabbi Nassan passed away and Rabbi Aaron delivered his eulogy, he wept profusely and cried out, "My dear friend, you alone inherited the entire repository of Rebbe's life." Here we see something beautiful, the humility in the request for friendship. You have knowledge. I am thirsty for the knowledge that you have. Please, become my friend. Wow. That's why we learn about Tzadikim, to understand the details of humility, of really understanding that when you understand that somebody has something that you want, and in a positive way, not in a way of like, oh, I want what you have, but rather, wow, please share with me the beauty of what you have. Humbling yourself in the sense of saying, this is the greatness I see in you. It's a beautiful thing. Continuing with the Breslov insights. Acquire for yourself a friend. Rav Nassan teaches. The Hebrew word kaneh, acquire, alludes to the kaneh, the reed or reed pen. That is a scholar's friend, the pen, for it enables him to fulfill the words of Torah. Thus, the Mishnah states, find for yourself a teacher, and if you are unable to find a teacher, acquire for yourself a friend. That is, acquire holy books that are written with the reed pen. Make these your friends and study them well, and you will come to know God. So we alluded to that in the beginning. Let's continue. Find for yourself a teacher, acquire for yourself a friend. Rav Nassan teaches further. Often, when people become motivated to return to God, the holy spark within them begins to blaze intensely, seeking to reconnect to its place of origin, in the Or Ein Sof, light of the Infinite One. Knowing in their hearts that they have caused much spiritual damage, these Ba'alei Teshuvah immediately seek to undertake various penances and fasts. Soon, however, they change their minds, knowing that they cannot endure all these self-imposed afflictions. As a result, they give up, abandon all hope of ever returning to God. This problem is all too common. Every member of the holy nation of Israel deeply desires to return to God. Many of us are prevented from doing so, however, due to the very intensity of our feelings. Early on, we become emotionally spent at our inner fire, and our inner fire is almost completely extinguished. We should remember that we are all given the chance to rectify our sins. In order to do so, we are placed in test situations. We should remember that we are all given a chance to rectify our sins. In order to do so, we are placed in test situations. Similarly, circumstances are set up. Similar forces are exerted upon us. Yet this time, we should be able to overcome the test. If not, the damage is greatly increased. The main work of returning to God, teshuvah, consists of sincerely repenting of our previous errors. I heard this directly from Rabbi Nachman's mouth. Just a sidebar, a chet, a sin, is actually translated as a miss. I like to look at teshuvah in our generation as returning to ourselves, returning to our alignment. A lot of the things that we do sometimes, we're off our own alignment. And when we do teshuvah, when we return to our own personal self, that's when we can connect to the divine. The main factor is thought. We must overcome the negative thoughts that attack us, regardless of their frequency and intensity. If we remain resolute in this, we will in the course of time attain complete teshuvah. And in any event, no good thought is ever lost. I'm going to take a sidebar and talk about narrative. Here he's talking about negative thoughts, right? That's our negative narrative, our inner critic, that voice inside of us that's constantly telling us either that we're not good enough or that we can do better or that there's more. I have a little trick that worked for me. I have a lot of fun sharing it, so I'm going to share it with you. There's, the app Waze. There's this feature on Waze that you can download another accent or another voice. So I tried applying that to my inner critic. I realized something about our inner critic or about our negative narrative. It's not based on lies, meaning whatever we're being criticized for is based on a true point. However, the way it's being delivered to us by us is this culmination of so many negative voices that we've heard in our entire lives. So if we download a new voice for this critic, let's say Mickey Mouse, then suddenly we'll laugh at what it's saying and we'll be able to get the message of, hey, there's something off. There's something that's offline. And this inner critic will actually become our GPS. It'll become that thing that lets us know when we're off, as opposed to being that thing that kicks us while we're down. Thank you. Let's continue. This is why it is so important to connect to the tzaddikim and their disciples. Only through them do we learn how to walk the path of return in the proper way. For this reason alone, we should travel, even on foot, to the tzaddikim and their disciples, in fulfillment of the words of the sages. Find yourself a teacher, acquire for yourself a friend. Thus, we may receive true spiritual advice, drawn from the pure waters of our Torah. Surely, if we do so, we can be confident that we will attain the ultimate goal. The main thing is to know that God is great beyond all comprehension, and there is always hope. We need only to set aside our preconceptions and heed the guidance of the tzaddikim. Wow. Here, I think at the end it says something really important. It says, the main thing is to know that God is great beyond all comprehension and there's always hope. A tzaddik is someone that can wake up within us the fact or the knowledge or the fire of hope. That's a tzaddik. Whoever wakes up hope inside of you, then that's the person that you need to listen to when you need to tap into that. And we need to set aside our preconceptions and heed the guidance of the tzaddikim. That means that we need to listen to those people that wake up that hope with curiosity. Because the only way to set aside preconceptions is to be curious about new knowledge. But what new knowledge should we be curious about? The one that sparks hope within our soul. Because that's the spark of Hashem that can never be extinguished. Continuing, Rav Nassan teaches, it is impossible to become a Jew in truth unless one draws close to true tzaddikim. They show him the path he must follow and the deed he must perform, in a manner that will temper his fervor and idealism as he advances from level to level, meaning somebody that can see you, somebody that can see the big picture, that can see what your qualities are, that you allow yourself to be seen by. Because the only people that can see you, or the better people can see you, or the more you choose to allow people to see you, the more they can see. And tzaddikim, people that have found that path or that alignment, the ones that see themselves, then the more you see you, the greater ability they have to see you as well. This is the essence of the mitzvah. You shall not deviate from what they tell you to the right or to the left. Only the sages and true tzaddikim know how to accomplish this, namely, to constrict the light of the disciples' enthusiasm to the appropriate degree, without veering to the right or the left. Right here denotes an overabundance of light, while left entails losing all enthusiasm. Again, this is why it is so important to abide by the guidance of the sages and true tzaddikim, for they lead their followers on the straight path, ensuring that the intensity of the light is modulated to the proper degree. Excuse me. This is actually touches a very personal story. Most people, when they want to get close to religion, they do it very slowly. And one of the biggest advices that's given to people when they start to get close is take things slowly so you don't get overwhelmed, as it's saying in the book, so you don't burn out. I remember when I kind of made the choice to start keeping Torah and mitzvahs, I went to my tzaddik at the time, to my rabbi. Now I'm a very close friend, still my tzaddik, Rav Elisha. And I looked at him and I said, okay, I'm ready to jump in. And basically I went from not keeping any mitzvahs at all to keeping all of them. And it was from morning to night. I remember getting home and my roommates were like, dude, you forgot your kippah. I was like, no, I'm not taking it off anymore. And my tzaddik, my rabbi, was able to see that if it was any other way, it wouldn't have worked for me. Yet every other one of his students was given the opposite advice. When you allow a person to truly see you, and they do see you, then the advice that they give you is channeled specifically for you. But it depends on you. It depends on how curious you are, how open you are to allow someone to see you. And when you are and when you do, the channeling that you bring down through them, it can literally change your life for the best. So to my Tzadik, thank you. Moving on, judge every person favorably. Rabbi Nachman teaches, know that it is necessary to judge every person favorably, literally on the scale of merit. Even if you encounter a complete sinner, you must search until you find some element of good in him. By finding this small amount of good and judging him favorably, you will eventually elevate him onto the scale of merit. You can then cause him to return to God. Reminds me of a story that I once heard of a man who woke up one morning and realized that his bed was empty. House was really quiet. He went downstairs and there was the coffee machine with hot coffee and a note. The wife's handwriting. It says, "Good morning. I'm really sorry. We can't handle it anymore. Bye." He's shocked. Looks at the clock, realizes, oh my gosh, I'm late for work, pours the coffee, kind of burns his hand, puts it in his cup, gets in his car, drives to work. Gets to work, he can't find parking, finds a spot, leaves his car, goes into work, gets to his desk, sees a pink slip. He's been laid off due to downsizing. Packs his stuff in a cardboard box. He's like, oh my God, can this day get any worse? My wife left me, took the kids, I just got fired. As he's walking to the car, he's about, 20 feet from the car. The bottom of the box breaks, all his stuff just breaks on the floor. At this point, he doesn't even know where to put himself. He picks up all the stuff, puts it back, kind of hugs the box. He's walking across the street. As he gets to the car, he sees glass on the floor. All of his windows are smashed. And to boot, there's a parking ticket on it. Throws his stuff in the car. He says, that's it. I'm done. I'm done. And he just walks. And he's walking to the bridge. And he's about to jump and take his own life. He's like, that's it. There's nothing good. There's nothing left to live for. And as he's walking, his eyes cross paths with another human being. And that human being sees him and smiles. Keeps on walking. That moment, the man that was about to jump stops and says, wait, if that person can still smile at me, then maybe there's something worth living for. And he turned around and he turned his life around. You never know what one smile, one kind look to another human being can do to them. This teaching is implicit in the verse, and yet in a little bit the sinner is gone. You will contemplate his place, but he will not be there. The verse is telling you to judge everyone favorably. Even if you see that someone is a complete sinner, you must still hunt and search until you find some little bit of good in him. In the place where this little bit of good exists, the person is not bad. This is the meaning of, and yet in a little bit the sinner is gone. In other words, you must seek out the little bit of good that still remains in him, for in that place he's not a sinner. He may be evil, but even so, is it really possible that not even a small remnant of good still exists in him? Could it be that he never once carried out some mitzvah or did anything good throughout his entire life? By finding a little bit of good in him and judging him favorably because of it, you will really elevate him. This is reminding me of a story of David HaMelech. David HaMelech had a very, very tough life. He was kind of exiled by his family in the beginning as a child. His best friend tried to kill him, when he was appointed as king, all his life was just wars. Even his son wanted to kill him, yet he wrote Tehillim. They say, the sages teach us, that you can't write psalms unless you're in the state of ultimate happiness. How could David HaMelech, King David, have been in a state of ultimate simcha when everything around him was so dark? And I heard once that, well, picture yourself in a dark room. I mean, pitch black. You can't even see your hand in front of your face. And in the top, right corner of the room, there's this little hole, like a pinhole, and through that hole, there's coming one little beam of light. The room is still really dark, right? But you see, David HaMelech was able to focus only on that pinhole of light and find ultimate happiness there. And from that point, he was able to write Tehillim. I think that's what this is alluding to as well. Find that point in somebody else. And you can even get to the point of Psalms, of Shirah, just absolute beauty. By finding in the sinner a little bit of good where he is not evil, you will contemplate his place, and he will not be there. When you reflect upon and examine his place, he will not be there. That is, in his original place. By finding in him a little bit of good, some good point, and then judging him favorably, you genuinely move him from the scale of guilt onto the scale of merit. You must find this good point within yourself as well. It is a known principle that one must be very sure to be happy always and to avoid depression. It may be that when you start to examine yourself, you will think you have nothing good in you at all. You may see that you are full of sin, and the evil inclination wants to push you into depression and sadness as a result. Even so, you must not allow yourself to fall, not on any account. What you should do is search until you find that little bit of good within yourself. For how could it be that you never carried out a single mitzvah or did anything good through your entire life? You may start to examine a good deed you have done, only to find that it is also full of blemishes and wholly deficient. It seems to have been prompted by impure motives and bound up with impure thoughts and numerous flaws. Even so, how is it possible that this mitzvah or holy deed doesn't contain at least a small element of good? Some good point must be there. You have to search until you find some aspect of good in yourself to restore your inner vitality and bring joy to your soul. And by searching for and finding some little bit of good that still remains in you, you genuinely move from the scale of guilt onto the scale of merit. And from there you can return to God. Next, you should search further until you have found another good point, despite any deficiencies it may have, and continue on and on until you can collect all of the good points and make them into a song. You will then be able to pray and sing and give thanks to God. Let's all sing just about the good things that we can find within us. We've already been singing for so long about the bad. Let's try changing the track, huh? No little point. Nowhere in all of this does it say don't judge people. There's a real big wisdom, deep wisdom to the Torah, obviously, or not obviously. And the wisdom is the following. The Torah doesn't tell you not to judge people because we were created in the way that everything we look at, we judge. But it's telling us what to do with the energy. God's basically saying, I know you're going to judge people, so judge them favorably. Use that energy of judgment for good, and then you can actually bring more good into the world. A weighty task. Once, when Rav Nassan was giving over this lesson, Rabbi Nachman Tulchener sat next to him, repeating word for word what his teacher was saying. Rav Nassan turned to his closest disciple and said, don't think it's easy. Remember what Rabbi Nachman taught. By judging others favorably, you can move them from the scale of guilt onto the scale of merit and bring them to repentance. If it were simple, we could have already brought the entire world to repent. It's not easy. I'll talk personally. It's not easy to wake up every morning and find the good in you. It's not easy to wake up every morning and want to choose to be happy. It's not easy to look for the good in other people. There's so much going on in the world right now that it's not easy. And this is really reassuring. If it was easy, it'd be done and everybody would have done it. So guys, if it's hard, if you're feeling down, if you just don't know where to grab the strength to choose to be happy, to choose to find good, understand that it's okay. It's hard. Look for something small, a tiny pinhole of light. And remember that you always have the opportunity to make the choice. Merit in everyone. And I think this is not in closing. Rav Nassan once said, I can find merit in the worst sinner, even if he transgressed the entire Torah 800 times. Never give up looking for the good in yourself or in anybody else. Breslov Insights, Rav Nassan continues to teach, conflict and strife stem from a diversity of wills, which in turn derives from a failure to connect to the will of wills. Ra'avim, ra'ava de ra'avim, God's ultimate will. In truth, the wills of all human beings, despite the great differences between them, proceed from this ultimate will which will utterly transcend and change. Which utterly transcends change. Those who know and thoroughly believe this surely will not persist in strife. Instead, they will judge every person favorably. They will say to themselves, although I know that my intention is for the sake of heaven in doing this mitzvah or religious task, and my friend seems to be hindering me, I have to believe that his intention is for the sake of heaven too. He simply has a different view, and from his standpoint, this is not a mitzvah at all, or he might consider another mitzvah to be of more pressing importance. Perhaps he feels compelled to act differently due to the root of his soul. For in truth, all viewpoints and wills derive from the will of wills, although it's impossible to understand this rationally. If everyone would consider this, strife would surely cease. For conflict comes about when we fail to bind our will to the will of wills, where only harmony and peace prevail, since everything is incorporated into God's oneness. I'm really emotional right now because I've been thinking about something and I've been really debating whether or not to share it. And this is speaking to that, so I'm going to share. We say on that day, God will be one and his name will be one. Yet, as a Jewish people, our first mantra is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. God is God and his name is one and he is one. So on that day doesn't apply to us. That day happened a long time ago. But on that day, when his name is one and he is one, that day, that's the day that there's no more conflict. And in order to get to that day, we have to understand that we're both going to the same place. I once said something which is an analogy. When there's a patient that has cancer, there's two ways of going about curing the patient. You can either kill the cancer or you can cure the patient. Yes, sometimes in curing the patient, you have to kill the cancer. But most of the time, when you're trying to kill the cancer, you kill the patient. The patient right now is the region. Israel, Palestine, this area. For those of us who live here, we're sick, we understand that we're in a body that has a cancer. And that cancer is evil. And that cancer has to be removed. And we can focus on killing and destroying that cancer, but we'll probably kill the patient. Or we can focus on healing the patient. And we can do so, first and foremost, by getting together, understanding that we're both going to the same place, and together curing the cancer. That's not only killing us, it's killing you, or them. When we get together and rid this region of evil, we can get together and build a region of prosperity. And in order to do that, we've got to understand that God is running the world and He knows what He's doing, and He's pushing us to a point that first, as a people, we have to unite, which we are, and we're getting there. We've got to stay focused on the path that it's about bringing light. But I think what we're being told here is that we can't do it alone. We've got to get together and heal the patient and understand that the patient is this area, this region, and from this region goes out to the world. And if everyone would consider this, strife would surely cease. For conflict comes about when we fail to bind our will to the will of wills, where only harmony and peace prevail, since everything is incorporated into God's oneness. May we really merit seeing the day when we can rid the world of evil, when we can see that we're all want to go to the same place, a world of love, a world of abundance, a world where His name, God, Hashem, Allah, Jesus, Pachamama, whatever you call it, the Spirit, the nature, Mother Nature, even what, don't call it, when we all agree that love is the truth, we're going to merit that. I feel it. And finishing off, sifting through the rubble. Once, a fire swept through part of the town of Breslov. Passing by the site, Rav Nassan and his followers spotted one of the distraught homeowners. Crying bitterly, the man was sifting through the rubble of his destroyed house in the hope of finding something that he could still use. Rav Nassan said, "Do you see what he's doing? Even though his house has been destroyed, he hasn't given up hope. He's collecting whatever might be useful for rebuilding his house. The same is true when it comes to spirituality. The evil one fights us, trying to destroy whatever holiness we've built up by getting us to do something that goes against God's will. Even so, when we are knocked down and all seems hopeless, we must never give up hope. We have to pick up a few good points, collect them together from amidst the sins. This is the way to return to God. May we all collect together in the path of light to return to ourselves and thus returning to the ultimate love. Hashem Yitbarach. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen. Amen. Thank you.